Hi boys and girls, it's me Butch. My name is Terry David Silvercloud. I'm not native, just sounds that way. I'm 79 years old. Today is the 12th of July, 2024, Friday. It's about 5:45, I think, down here at English Bay in Vancouver. And I'm going to try to make a reasonably short video about stuff I think about mostly in hopes of inspiring you or teaching you or something. And I title it Socrates on the Beach because, like Socrates, I'm godless. And being godless got Socrates into trouble because he was gay and he hung out at the taverna outside the Agora, the marketplace in Athens, where all the young men hung out. He was preaching his ideas that the gods were all a bunch of hooey, and when you start messing with the priests, you're bound to get yourself in trouble. And the priests somebody got the people to take a vote, and they told, he was pretty annoying anyway. He was always asking people endless questions. Just this old annoying dude. So they told him, I think he had a trial that he was guilty of denying the gods or something. In spite of it all, however it came about, he was ordered to kill himself, or they would do it for him. He was godless. But he was the first philosopher, and science comes out of philosophy. And he didn't have all the knowledge I have. So Butch is godless because he thinks that's just a silly, ridiculous idea. And he can explain how all of this can come about from basically a single substance occupying an arena with certain properties. Now, as a scientist, I do have a definition for God. God, to me, is a metaphor for the sum of all reality, all at once, all of the time, forever, in all directions. In other words, you're God, I'm God, everything is God. So God is just a metaphor for reality, and it always existed. So there never was a time when this kind of whatever we're looking at here could not or may not have existed somewhere. It's possible it could have existed somewhere since forever. We don't know that. We have no way of proving it or disproving it at this time. The point I'm trying to make is that where I'm going with all this is I have my own theory about how all this could come about, and so do most serious physicists into it. And they're divided into a couple of camps. The major camp right now is searching for proof of quantum gravity, because they want to unite gravity with quantum physics. They've been working on it for 50 years and they've had zero success. Quantum physics doesn't always agree with relativity. So the other camp has ideas based more on relativity ideas, and there's people that have ideas based on in between. There's people that believe in multi-universes and things, which Butch thinks is just a silly idea, because then you need a bigger universe in which to put them. It's like saying God created everything. You have to explain where God came from. We want to deal with one single, unified, grand reason for everything. And it can be done. Butch is saying it can be done with one substance that has certain properties, and Butch is going to explain where he differs from mainstream thought. So in physics in general, gravity is considered a very weak force and an attraction between bodies. Not very strong, but there. Butch says that's wrong. Butch says there's a very weak force, but it's repulsion, not attraction. And I'll try and come back to that, but I'm just going to say that Butch says he totally disagrees with the idea of the gravitational weak force being attraction, and says it's 100% the opposite. That's going to cause a lot of problems with relativity, and I don't care, so we're not even going to go down that path, because I don't understand all the ramifications myself. Where do I want to go with this? So let me explain why I think that is. Now you need to know that most physicists agree, and I agree with them, that the bulk of what we think of as gravitational forces, like why I weigh 190 pounds forcing against the Earth here. I can tell you that your feet are pointing between your head and your toes. You're pointing straight at the center of the Earth all the time, unless you're falling or something. And that's because the solar system is speeding through the Milky Way, or not through the Milky Way. The Milky Way is rotating, and the solar system is going with it as well as moving. And it's moving at least about 530 kilometers per second. Every time I go tick, you went 530,000 kilometers. That's a long way. So in 1 year, Earth travels about 7 billion kilometers in space, by doing it within the Milky Way. And it's only a little less than 100 million miles from the sun. So that means that Earth makes a long heliacal kind of wave, one wave per year, 7 billion miles long, and that's the wavelength, 7 billion kilometers. But that wave has wiggliness on top of it, and that's the whole key to reality. Waves are riding upon waves, are riding upon waves, are riding upon waves. Now, if you want to divide the universe up forever, the most convenient way to do it mathematically is to cube it. So you have to assume the universe is made of a substance which is fluid by nature because it's the only substance there is. It's transparent by nature because it's too small to see. And that it sets the speed of light because it's electromagnetic in nature. And if it moves, that is setting the speed of light. And it could spin, which will also affect the speed of light. So these little tiny thingies, if they could spin, and they might even be able to wobble on top of that, which would be compound spins. But if everything was static, we brought the universe to a standstill and turned it all back into one gigantic jelly from coast to coast forever, and broke it down into its individual particles sitting next to each, top to bottom, side to side, you would find it would form hexagonal kind of rings around it, but that's another story. In any way you would go, because it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the drift? Where am I going with this? So, because this stuff is somethingness, at some point it can't be crushed any further. It just can't be. And the shape of a cube is not a very good idea. So we're going to take that cube and make it take the shape of a sphere with exactly the same volume. In other words, we pushed the corners all in. We crushed everything in we possibly could on that cube so that there were just zillions and zillions of surfaces, and turned it into a sphere. Now this is a much better way to deal with pressures, because it can deal with infinite numbers and irrational numbers, because pressure under general scientific laws, it exerts itself equally in all directions. That's just one of our basic laws that you want to be looking for. In a liquid, underwater, pressure exerts itself equally in all directions. And then you have to, other things come into play like surface pressure and that, but let's not worry about all that. What I'm trying to tell you is there's a point at which you can no longer compress whatever it is, and even though we had it in a cube shape, that cube is going to be distorted somehow without spaces in between to be a wobbly cube. They somehow find a way of not having any space in between, because nothingness is not allowed. There's always something there. But pressure exerts itself equally in all directions from the center of each one of these individual units. just want to look at my crib notes because maybe I'm supposed to tell you something here. I'm not. So every force has an equal and opposite direction. That's very important. So any force that's going out anywhere, something is pushing back. And you may say, well, how come this thing, if the whole universe is crushing it out of existence, doesn't get crushed out of existence? Well, it nearly does. But if you think about it, its surface area is almost nothing. I mean, seriously, it's like nothing. It's really small. So even though its entire surface is being exposed to all of the pressures of the universe, it's so small that it's pressing back, and it has to satisfy this law because it's one of our laws. Every force has an equal and opposite reaction and force. So you have to assume and take for granted, just because of our basic laws of physics, that this thing is quite capable of doing it, and it does. Let me check my notes here, make sure I'm not supposed to tell you something else. Okay, I think I covered it. I wanted to make sure I got in there the idea that it doesn't matter that the entire universe to infinity is crushing down. It's going to push back with a unit of energy, and it's probably smaller than a quantum, but for the sake of argument, because that's our smallest unit in quantum physics, let's just say it pushes back with 1 quantum's worth of force, equally distributed in all directions. So that means you got to take 1 quantum, and the formula for the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. So the force, the radius force, could be plugged in there, and you could probably do some. I'm not into math. I'm just trying to give you an idea how you could backwards engineer that kind of thing, and maybe even figure out what it actually was. I'm trying to get across to you basically some of my ideas and how they conform with reality. Remember, if I haven't enough said already, there is no established theory of how the universe came to be. Big Bang is never been proven. It's a horrible idea. It came about from the observation that not planetary bodies, but astronomical bodies seem to be moving further apart. There's an explanation for that could possibly be that as we move closer into the center of the Milky Way, our surrounding electromagnetic waves that we're riding are changing. Plus also, when I told you we go through the Earth in one big helical wave, there's some other dips and dives and twists in there, and one of those dips and dives is we pass above and below the galactic plane of the Milky Way. And the galactic plane will be associated with longer wavelengths. So that means that while we're within the galactic plane of the Milky Way, all of the information that we are seeing may take longer to get to us, which may make it seem like things are further away. And then as we pass out of that galactic plane, we may find things return. I don't know, I'm just suggesting it, and I'm trying to tell you there's other reasons. Just like Einstein's space-time saying that light should bend towards stars because space-time bends. Well, it would have bent anyway, because space is not empty. Space, and it's ruled by being faster than the speed of light. And things that are solid, the fermions, leptons, they're slower than the speed of light. They can speed by spinning to the speed of light, and that's how they remain objects, because the actual elemental units of quanta, by rotating at the E equals mc squared, by rotating at the speed of light squared, they can occupy a disk at the same time. So if you look into it, you'll get what I'm talking about. So once you exceed the speed of light squared, you become sort of a stable wave. And then if you go to 4/3 pi r cubed, which is the formula for the volume of a sphere, you could be a standing ball. So you can imagine some little bit of crap in the Higgs field starts spinning, spinning, and spinning, and it finally reaches, because it can't go anywhere. It just can't get anywhere, so it spins. Everything else around is traveling faster than the speed of light. It's trying its best to keep up this little thing, and it finally achieves the speed of light squared, and it can rest. The reason it can rest is the very center has no spin. The edges are spinning, but the center is finally at rest. And says, oh, thank God. But the game's not over, because he starts wobbling, and the center pole starts having energy vibrate back and forth through it. So you get a hump above and a dip below, sort of a vacuum below and a pressure above, and then wave function starts happening between these things at trying to catch up to the speed of light. And finally it does. It catches up to the speed of light squared, and eventually it catches up to the speed of light cubed, and you have a standing sphere of a singularity vibrating at the speed of light, 4/3 the speed of light cubed for any particular time that makes sense to you. Time's an illusion. It's a relativity thing. Okay, I went on too long. I'm going to keep doing this because I'm at very high risk for stroke. I could drop dead in front of you. I'm going to be 80 this fall, and I think if I just keep doing this, I may inspire somebody, or you may learn something you don't know, or I inspire you to get to know stuff that you might want to know, and why gods are silly. Gods are just silly. You're God. I'm God. This is God. Personally, I don't like me. I don't like what I built. I don't like this at all. This didn't work out the way I planned, and I don't want any part of it. But here I am, and I expect I'll be dead quite soon, so that's why I'm doing this. So I'm going to reach down behind here and say bye-bye from Butch, okay? Okay, I'm getting down close to you. We're going to snuggle up real close together here. All right, ready?